How many people call themselves good NCOs? They care about their soldiers right now.
And we go over
I'll say wait, this guy didn't raise his hand. So everybody should be raising their hand. If otherwise you should not be there. If you're gonna say you're not a good NCO, you're like, yeah, no, I'm a shitty NCO. I don't even know why I'm here. What's up, my friends? Welcome to this video. Today we're checking out what it's like to become a drill sergeant. There is specific training that soldiers have to go through if they want to become a drill sergeant, and we've got some footage that I have not yet seen. So we're going to check out this video from Business Insider to see what they have captured and see what it's like to try to become a drill sergeant. Let's dive into things. We're going to check this out. I don't know, should be pretty interesting. I got my headphones on backwards, so that's not gonna help very well, but not a big deal. Let's check this video out and see what we got going on. This is that basic training video that we saw before.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Ooh.
We're gonna win everything the whole cycle.
Now we switched things up. Now we're at the new version.
In the span of 2 years, the U.S. Army has completely changed its approach to training new recruits.
No more shark attack.
Aren't cussing at soldiers anymore. If you got to use that language to get somebody to do something, you are not relevant in our army anymore.
Which means the way...
I guess I can kind of get that. At the same time, it's definitely scary when a drill sergeant is cursing at you, right? I guess you could still be scary and not have to curse, I guess. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
The way drill sergeants are trained has also changed.
That's frankly something that we adopted during the Vietnam era. It was because we had a drafted force.
But the reasons for this recent shift may go beyond adapting to a modern volunteer army.
We're having a hard time recruiting. I think right now we're at about 40,000 in a deficit. We also can't
at least acknowledge it.
People in our army. People don't want to stay.
And with change comes criticism.
If there is the belief that the Army is woke and that we are getting softer, you couldn't be farther from the truth.
Insider visited the United States Army Drill Sergeant Academy in Fort Jackson, South Carolina to see how drill sergeant training has changed to better...
Man, that dude right there, you got Special Forces tab, Ranger tab. Guy's gonna be a mean drill sergeant probably.
prepare the Army of tomorrow.
Welcome, United States Army Drill Sergeant Academy.
Day one of the drill sergeant training begins promptly at 0600 with a team building event called the Defender Pickup.
5-4, follow me. Let's go. Let's go.
The first task is they're going to run a certain amount of distance and they're going to get to their first values boards.
How many people call themselves good NCOs? They care about their soldiers right now.
And we go over
I'll say wait, this guy didn't raise his hand. So everybody should be raising their hand. If otherwise you should not be there. If you're gonna say you're not a good NCO, you're like, yeah, no, I'm a shitty NCO. I don't even know why I'm here. So definitely you should be seeing everybody's hand go up. If there isn't, I don't know why you're there, man. I don't see that guy raising his hand yet. Maybe he's just a little reluctant.
each Army value.
This exercise
He nodded. He nodded, I guess. But you see what I'm talking about? There was that one guy that didn't raise his hand. It might have been even more. I just happened to focus on that one dude.
To the Drill Sergeant Academy. It shows candidates how soldiers are now welcome to the Army, and it also highlights the core values that drill sergeants are meant to embody.
Let's talk about integrity. Be honest. Be honest. Give me some more. How does that tie into being a drill sergeant?
After grabbing all of their value boards, drill sergeant candidates are shown a bunker configuration and given 30 seconds to memorize it.
It's the same thing that they do for the first 100 yards, what they basically have replaced the shark attack with. No longer just yelling at them. Now they have like this little thing where I think they still yell at them, but it's not the same. And then they have this little exercise they do where they have to like put it back together. So I guess they kind of do that in the Drill Sergeant Academy too. So I guess that's good to help prepare them for doing that at basic. I don't know.
They're expected to remember exactly the configuration, how high it is, whether it's 2 sandbags high, 3 sandbags high.
Yep, there's three. There's three on top.
Then they have to get inspected by the senior drill sergeant of that platoon.
Drill sergeants, you have one tiny infraction. So go ahead, secure your
handle.
boards, make your way back to the IHG hotel, figure
I'm
out.
gonna say that little handle on an ammo can.
Final step
sticking
of the
up.
event requires platoons to stack their value boards, which if correctly done, reveals the drill sergeant badge and motto.
Once they see that, it's kind of the, oh, hey, I'm actually in drill sergeant school. It's here, this is real.
You know what?
I'm sure they realized they were drill sergeant school before that, but I get you what you're saying.
Man, after working with y'all for the last, couple of freaking minutes, hey, y'all gonna be good leaders. Y'all gonna be good drill sergeants. So I'm not even worried about that.
The Defender pickup is modeled after an exercise called the First 100 Yards,
Yeah,
a
see, there you
day-one
go.
training competition for new infantry soldiers, which replaced the
New infantry, I think it's everybody, guy. It's not just new infantry soldiers. Everybody does this now, buddy. Get your facts straight.
more controversial Shark Attack.
Right there, look at one right there!
We're breaking a lot of habits from the civilian world, and nothing better than a little shock to the system to establish that that drill sergeant is in charge.
Yelling at a trainee, yelling at an individual, period, they get into defense mode. They shut down, right? Those barriers go up. And once those barriers go up, it's pretty hard to really get to the root cause of situations.
Yeah, I guess a little bit. I mean, yeah, it is probably going to be like that where some people are just going to kind of shut down, sort of. But at the same time, too, it's also scary. And I think that's kind of part of it, too, is to make sure that, hey, we don't have anybody coming into the Army that's weak, I guess. I don't know.
With a new approach to training in mind, future drill sergeants learn the 3 different methods for training recruits.
On the command at ease, the soldier may move. However, he must remain standing and silent with the right foot in place.
These methods give drill sergeants the ability to customize their training instead of a one-size-fits-all approach.
Everybody drives different. Everybody does something different ways to skin a cat. But here, the purpose of what we're doing here at the Academy is to have a standardized way of effectively training trainees to do something.
Coming up!
Though there's flexibility in how drill sergeants can train new recruits, there isn't always flexibility in becoming a drill sergeant in the first place. Of the 2,200 drill sergeant candidates who come through the Academy each year, on average, only 35% of them volunteer. The remaining 65% are DA selected.
Yeah, it's like a thing that you'll end up getting if you're not familiar with the whole process and stuff is, yeah, you can volunteer to become a drill sergeant or even a recruiter as well. But there's also some times where you might get to a point in your career, especially like when you're E6 type of thing, you all of a sudden get a letter in the mail or someone gives you the orders from your unit saying, hey, you've been selected to go to drill sergeant or to go recruiting. And pretty common around E6 range is when you're usually at risk of that. If you volunteer for it, then a little bit different. But yeah, I remember a few people that have come up on orders, mainly recruiting. It seems like recruiting is the more common one, possibly, but I don't know.
Which means they were nominated by their superiors and assigned a tour as a drill sergeant.
What went through your mind when you got that?
I got a bit emotional because I was like, I have 3 kids. First thing coming to your mind is like the hours. My kids are young.
Yeah, that's the big thing I know people complain about being a drill sergeant is there's just crazy hours. You're doing a lot of training, and especially when it's during the cycle and everything like that, you don't get a lot of time with family. So I'm sure it can be very, very taxing on your free time being a drill sergeant. I'd imagine that.
So I felt like I was going to be taken away from them for a while.
It wasn't my first choice.
This is the crazy thing. I was talking about it with another person earlier. A couple days ago or whatever, but E5s as drill sergeants seems kind of crazy. I think that it's because the Army is really in need of drill sergeants, in need of recruiters, whatever, and so E5s come up on it. I remember a point in time where E6 was the minimum. You had to be an E6 to be a drill sergeant, but that's not the case anymore. And in my personal opinion, I don't feel like an E5 has enough experience to be a drill sergeant. I think it should be an E6, even though you can have some people that have been E5 for a while because they're M1, because of points and a lot of other kind of factors that kind of, make it to where, yeah, they have the same amount of experience as this other person that's an E6, but you still don't have the same leadership responsibility as an E5 as you do as an E6. Usually you get a lot more kind of going on when you've made it to E6 and you start doing certain kind of things that's required of you as an E6. And I think that's a good point to probably start being able to train soldiers where even if you've been in the Army for the same amount of time as this other E6, you're an E5, they're an E6, you've both been in the Army for the same amount of time, both been on the same amount of deployments. I feel like there's still some responsibility that E6 has gone through that the E5 has not yet gone through. So it's kind of weird to me having E5 drill sergeants, but hey, I guess if you're really hurting on numbers and you need to get people in there and whatever the case is, then I guess you got to do what you got to do sometimes to make things work out.
My husband was deployed. I was at home with a kid by myself and working full time, so I thought it was not ideal, and I didn't want to do it at first.
Has your mind changed?
Yes, 100%. It is 100% changed. Being here has given me a whole new perspective on being a drill sergeant and being in TRADOC and training trainees.
While the Army...
Mainly, I think it bugs me, like, if you have a situation where you have, like, someone who's only been an E5 for a little bit, so they've only been in the Army for, let's say, 5-6 years, right? It's not, I don't think you're well qualified enough to be in that position. I don't know. My opinion. If you disagree with me, that's completely fine. Comment down below, right? But my personal take, you should be an E6 and maybe have been in the Army for a little while. It's kind of hard to make the requirement of, like, they have to have deployed because there's not a lot of deployments going on anymore. But there was a point where that probably would have been a good requirement, but it's tough.
The Army has to choose more than half of its... One of the hardest parts of the training for future drill sergeants is relearning the basics.
100, 150, 200.
Like basic rifle marksmanship. For many students, their Army jobs don't require daily rifle usage.
I am a 68 Delta surgical technician.
I'm a medic.
So, many drill sergeant candidates have to relearn rifle basics and how to teach those to recruits.
And the hardest thing about...
Yeah, I mean, if you're only doing it once, twice a year for qualification, I'm sure that's pretty rough. Where compared to in the drill sergeant kind of way or the basic training way, you know, it's a little bit more hectic or a little bit more frequently. You're having to kind of, you know, do that kind of stuff compared to basically your unit when you're not in an MOS that heavily focuses on weapons training.
That is, you have to get those bad habits out of your mind. Hey, well, this is how I do it. Because how you do it, you might not be able to communicate that effectively to a trainee. So coming back here and having to learn those basic fundamentals, the way that you're gonna teach them, it is a little different from what I was accustomed to back home.
1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, hold!
In week 7, candidates complete their physical readiness training evaluation.
I'm Drill Sergeant Candidate Arteaga. I will be the PI this morning. Fall in, stand to left, march.
It's very similar to like some of the NCO training you have to go through too. You have to go through and make sure you know how to give PT and give physical fitness. So I guess just reiterating, at this point you should already know how to do this stuff, but I mean, I guess just learning new skills and practicing it.
Your main job is
it's kind of a weird way that they did it. I want to go back to that. I was kind of talking before that, but the way that they did the extend to the left thing.
I will be the PI this morning. Fall in, stand to left, march.
Your main
Is that how they do it nowadays? Did it change? I thought I remember seeing some recent times where people were doing PT and they still just do the thing where they just do the normal, you know, extend to the left and they all just kind of just run to the left until they get arm's length, not this face of movement and then kind of doing it. That's different. I want to hear maybe in the comments if any of you guys currently on active duty, because the reserves don't do this, let's be honest, on active duty, do you guys do that when you guys do extend to the left? Do you guys do it that way? That's weird. That was just kind of, I don't know, maybe it was just a drill sergeant academy type of thing, but it seemed kind of strange the way they were doing the extend to the left.
Tempo of the actual PRT session. So your cadence, your count, things of that nature, and you're saying whatever the exercise is. You're basically the one on the stand.
Without warning, the drill sergeant leader will tell the students to switch places. And after switching roles, the other student will have to pick up exactly where the previous student left off.
Quadruplex!
Interesting.
Your hips are going to drop all the way down to the marching surface. What that means, you may need to unlock.
With a week left at the Drill Sergeant Academy, the only thing standing between the students and their graduation is a grueling culminating event. Unlike other training drills, the culminating event is the first event entirely run by the students.
They plan it, they resource it, and they execute it entirely on them.
Each squad of drill sergeant students is put in charge of one of the events.
One of the things I haven't really seen yet in this video is like them getting yelled at. Like I thought I remember that being a thing. Like if they go and they get yelled at like they're in basic training. Maybe with the times changing, maybe they don't do that anymore. I remember also hearing stories that like in drill sergeant school, they would have to like yell at the trees and they kind of just practice their yelling. But again, it's a new type of style that they're doing with basic training. So maybe that's not a part of that and the way they do things anymore. I don't know.
And this is where we want them to fail. You know, we want them to go through the hiccups now of the resourcing piece so that when they get on the trail, they understand that, hey, things will happen and I have to adjust, you know, on the fly. Once they go through that, they'll move on to their next task, which is the third one, which is a mass casualty event, or MASCAL. They'll be marching from one point to another, and in between those points, they'll receive heavy contact.
Let's go! Let's get the bird!
I guess a lot of what I expected for like a drill sergeant academy type of thing is a lot of like learning how to teach, because that's a lot of what you're doing as a drill sergeant. You're teaching new soldiers how to be soldiers. This seems almost like more like of what we're seeing, because we're probably not seeing everything, but of what we're seeing, it feels more like I don't know, like not the same thing, like not the same as like going through Ranger school, but you know, those kinds of schools, like Air Assault school, Ranger school, Airborne school, whatever. It feels more like a school, like you're going to a school for some kind of special skill, but not a drill sergeant skill. But again, we're possibly just not seeing the aspect of it of like how to like teach new soldiers. And I just feel like that part is maybe missing from this video, possibly. Otherwise, what we're seeing just seems like a lot of exercises to make you a better soldier, possibly.
The drill sergeant leader candidates who are in charge of the particular MASCAL event, they're going to walk around and say, hey, you know, you've been hit by IDF, your right leg is blown off, right? And now they're trying to assess, you know, what is everybody going to do when there is a mass casualty event? How are we going to remain calm and control the situation?
Ah! That shrapnel, can't yank it like that.
Following the mass casualty of...
You got to play that stuff up. If you ever have an opportunity where you got to play a victim for training exercises or something like that, you got to play that stuff up, man.
Event, we have the Fit to Win, which is the obstacle course that they go through.
All right, so today our task, right, is to negotiate the endurance course, right?
Each squad will run through each obstacle and they will basically do it for time. The goal here is to, you know, build that camaraderie, build that competition, so at the end, somebody can have bragging rights. And the very last event of the culminating training event is the 5-mile road march.
5 miles, that's it? 5? You got to do 10 in basic. Why only 5? I don't know.
And this is huge because this is the first time that they are actually called drill sergeants. We pin the badges on them. We congratulate.
Sorry, I'm still stuck in this 5 mile thing, bud. 5 miles? I mean, maybe, I guess all the other stuff before that was pretty exhausting, so 5 is okay, and I don't know. But when you just say it like that, like 5 mile road march, like what, a 5 mile road march? I don't even know if you usually do that little in regular units. Might less than drill sergeants academy, but again, I think he was saying that happens after that obstacle course, so I guess I can get it. But just looking at it alone as just a 5 mile road march seems pretty low. I'd be like, we should better be doing like a 12, 10 at least. But I guess because you're doing it right after the obstacle course, maybe. I don't know.
Congratulate them, and we also celebrate in a little grog ceremony.
So it's only fitting that we do a grog ceremony for all of you, representing you becoming drill sergeants.
The grog ceremony is a tradition that combines an odd
I think he
mix
wasted
of
though.
liquids, creating one unique punch
Alcohol?
or grog
Is there alcohol?
that drill sergeants all toast and drink.
The drink.
There you go. See what they had there? Rockstar. That's what I'm talking about. Got some Rockstar in that grog. But there's probably no alcohol in there, which I get. But I always think of a grog as something with alcohol in it.
This is Red Bull. It gave us wings.
I have Tapatio to add to the grog, and it represents duty because, like duty, it is a little spicy sometimes.
What about the Rockstar? Somebody read the Rockstar. There's the can right there, I think. What's it?
I taste that hot sauce. It's cold.
Like, okay. I've had worse.
The final week of training begins with the Commandant's Run, a ceremonial exercise where the...
You said it kind of weird. Commandants. You said a commandants or something like that? I want to hear that again. Hold on.
The final week of training begins with the Commandant's Run, a ceremonial exercise.
I don't know. Is this a commandant's? The way he says it's kind of weird. I don't know.
Where the
Not judging.
Commandant joins the graduating class one last time.
Seems like he said at that time, Rick, right? I don't know.
9 weeks after joining the academy, it is graduation day for 83 new drill sergeants.
To become a highly motivated, well-disciplined, physically and mentally fit soldier.
Drill sergeants receive their campaign cover and officially begin their tour as the United States Army drill
The
sergeant.
iconic hat. Headgear, not hat.
People, they see the uniform, they see the hat. They
Okay,
see
it's a hat.
their sons and daughters go off and put on that uniform. And we have this misconception that that human element has been removed, when in fact it's actually the complete opposite.
I am ready to get started. It's going to be the next 2, maybe 3 years of my life, and I want to make the most of it.
My nephew just recently joined the Army, and I get to set the example. Like, I am the standard. It's an honor for me.
That is pretty cool, though.
The Army needs you to be a very good leader, drill sergeant. Please take care of our soldiers.
Okay. So there you go. Interesting. I think I just expected more. I don't know. Like I said, I think training has changed up and it's different than the way it may have used to have been, you know, back in, let's say, the early 2000s, the 90s, whatever, for drill sergeants and teaching new soldiers and stuff like that. So they have to adapt to the new way of how they're doing basic training now. But a lot of what I was seeing, and like I said, it's probably just not showing everything that happens in that school, but a lot of what I was seeing in this was just kind of making them better soldiers, right? And making them better with their skills and other things, but probably the boring stuff that I would expect to see, like of how to teach soldiers how to do this or how to do that, and then probably doing some of those exercises probably weren't shown because it wasn't exciting, right? There's probably got to be some kind of aspect of where, you know, maybe they learned how to do something and then they had to teach some of the other instructors how to do that task to show that they can teach soldiers how to do things. And that probably wasn't shown in the video because it probably was boring to watch. So they kind of stuck with like things like the obstacle course, PT, road marching, you know, weapons qualification, all that stuff like that, because it's exciting. It's going to keep retention in the video. So I get that part. But I have someone that I know that's going to be probably going through the Drill Sergeant Academy next year in 2023. So when he comes back from that, it'll be good to maybe sit down with him and maybe talk about it and find out from his experience what kind of happened and how it kind of went, and it'd be kind of interesting to kind of see that perspective, because I think that probably what we're getting here is probably all the exciting moments, but there's probably a lot more that goes into this that we're not seeing because it's not very exciting, and it's all about just making them better instructors to be able to teach new soldiers to be soldiers. So what are your thoughts on this from what we saw in this aspect of it? Is it something you'd be interested in? Would you want to be a drill sergeant? I don't think I'd want to do that. I think mainly because of the hours. I wouldn't want to do that. I've also heard a lot of horror stories about, you know, dealing with new privates, new soldiers, and some crazy stuff that they try to pull that you have to deal with that I would not want to have to deal with. So I wouldn't want to do that. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Comment down below. Would you want to be a drill sergeant? Is that something you'd be interested in? Would it be fun? If you had a choice, you had to pick either drill sergeant or recruiter, which one would you pick? I'd probably rather do recruiter, even though I've heard both can be pretty challenging and sucky at times. But I think I'd still rather probably be a recruiter. Both probably have really long hours. But nonetheless, yeah. If you want to see the full video, check out the link down in the description box. I got also links for social media, all sorts of stuff. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.